A very good afternoon to you. You're welcome for joining us again on our program, Africa Discourse on Independent Television. My name is Evan Sunokoge. You're welcome. Today on the show, we are going to be looking at what some say is somehow connected to the coup in Niger. Why somehow some people say that it is totally not connected. It has to do with security. And of course, we're talking about the three nations that have recently signed a security pact to handle the issue of banditry in the Sahara region. We are talking about Mali, Burkina Faso, and of course Niger. We understand that Niger is still, the coup is still very much present in Niger. And of course, we also understand that other African nations, just like yesterday when there were rumors now that Congo may just be the next nation that military junta will take over. Well, today on the program, Africa Discourse, we're going to be looking at the three nations that have decided to sign security pact. And of course, to what extent is this security pact going to fight the issue of security in the Sahel region? Or to what extent is it going to militate against the Ecowas, as it were? Because some persons actually are saying that it's not actually to fight security in the Sahel region, but to kind of go against the Ecowas. We're going to be looking at all that today on the program Africa Discuss. Well, to do all this this afternoon, we are so privileged to have Bashir Kadiri, former Permanent Secretary, Minister of Agri, Edo State, and of course a political public affairs analyst. Sir, you're welcome to this program Africa Discuss.
It's my pleasure being here, Noge. God will help Africa to become a strong continent again.
All right, you're welcome, sir. All right, so just as we do on this show, we quickly see some major headlines on the program so that it will form a better footing for you to actually know what is going on the continent of Africa. So if you're ready there, we're also ready here. All right, so the very first headline that we are following now, we'll read that France announces release of French officials held in Niger security forces. A big headline that will interest you. And also, too, we read that United Nations investigates a report of 13 mass graves in Sudan's Darfur region. That's another one that we are following, major headline. Then also, we read that 10 lions killed in Kenya as conflict between humans and wild animals worsens. That's in Kenya now, 10 lions killed in Kenya as conflict between humans and wild animals worsens. This is a major interest, headline that you may want to find out, so you can actually Google that so that you get to read as you get along. Then also too, we have Libyan flood survivors, water shortages against land mine risk. That's another major headline. That's picture 4 now. For picture 4, if you have it, we can just quickly slide to that. All right, so we have Libyan flood survivors, water shortages against landmine risk. That is for picture 4. Then also too, we read for headline number 5 that Congo debunks reports of coup attempts as president arrives U.S. for hunger. I told you that as of 2 days ago, there were reports that Congo has been taken over. But you can see the Congolese president now who has come to the media to debunk of such reports. You know that the military onslaught in Africa has been going on. So nations are, being, apprehensive. Some nations are just apprehensive. And of course, they've also prepared. All right, so those are some of the major headlines that we have on the Africa Discourse frontline this afternoon. All right, so Bashir Kadiri, so let's look at this, military coming together, nations coming together to kind of sign a security pact. What benefits do you think is going to give to Africa? Let's start it from there.
Yeah, for me, I don't see anything wrong with collaboration, because security is supposed to be a collaborative effort. The gaps you didn't cover, others will cover it. And if you are contiguous by way of arrangement geographically, you are supposed to also have some contiguous arrangement on security definition, because sometimes you never can tell when these things are coming from. Many a time, if we had such very close relationship maybe we won't have this problem of insurgency in another Nigeria. Of course, you also know too that Niger have a border with Nigeria, and that is also another issue. But however, we hope that the relationship they are building is not built on personal aggrandizement in terms of trying to do what we're not expected. Let me not use that word here because it's not something I wish at all. But to say here that collaboration is very, very important in security definitions, and that is why we say synergy, you cannot throw it away from security definitions. Even though you are going to use what we call non-kinetic, you also need to use these strategies so that if anybody trying to undermine your security architecture, you're able to overcome him. Because some people use some other constituents to do their unleashing their mayhem. Because if you realize that a lot of people that have become a rumor have it, that a lot of people that come to Nigeria from that side of it are from Niger. And that's what rumor have. I don't know, I find that, but that's what rumor is saying. And a lot of them, if we're able to look at that very closely, you can now see that the need for synergy is important. But I do hope too that the arrangement is of positive development for their countries and not against the African continent.
All right, so we need to wonder, because when we talk about the Sahel region now, of which Nigeria is very close to it, so yes. Why do you think Nigeria is not part of this signatory, so to say?
Now, first of all, you mentioned security, you mentioned military, cool. Military and democracy are not too close when it comes to who drive the process, because by constitutional power, you expect that military is subservient, if you like, so subjugated to the constitutional power. So you cannot be expecting that there will be such a relationship when there's, of course, there is a lacuna and there has been a problem of relationship. If you remember very recently, I don't see how any Ecowas country that is democratically driven will want to partner with such organizations. So it is possible that discussions were on, but I'm not sure Nigeria can be part of that until the issues at stake are resolved. You cannot, you see, it's like a tree. Two trees fall, you must clear one before you get to the other one. So we must clear the issues first and look at the constitutionality of these organizations or these countries before we begin to talk about relating with them. Otherwise, you will be undermining what you resolved earlier. It's like you are saying one thing in the morning, another thing in the evening. The Nigerian people, Nigerian government have said, well, we cannot celebrate what they call it coup. We cannot celebrate military in government because we are a democratically driven country, whether we like it or not. And so for you to now go and partner with such organization means that you have tacitly accept that coup is the order of the day. And that you are giving credence to it.
Yeah, but we are talking about the issue of security here.
Now, when you talk about security, that's what I'm saying here. You must be conscious of the fact that certain things you do must have their meaning. And as a government, you must properly define your relationship with anybody and define who you are relating with. It's like you are saying, I want security, and therefore you go and have a relationship with a madman. Then God help you. You'll be exposed to all kind of hazard. So you need to tell yourself, who do I want to relate with ab initio? Do I understand this person? Do I know him? Is the relationship between us going to be in my favor, or am I going to benefit from it, or is it going to be mutual benefit? Or is it that it's being done to undermine me? Because you cannot begin to sit down here and say a relation with somebody we are not even very sure of his stability in terms of psychic. It is dangerous. No matter how you try to define it, it's dangerous. So you need to understand the psychology of the persons you are dealing with, and understand the content of the relationship that they are building, and know what exactly is it defining, and what is the benefit of your country in that relationship. Of course, Nigeria has always driven the fact that Africa is the center of its foreign mission.
Yeah.
But that has not been removed from the fact. But the thing is that you must know who you are relating with.
Okay. All right. So, the issue of insecurity in the Sahel region, it's almost a kind of multi-hydra headed now.
Yes.
A lot of persons are finding it difficult to actually know what is responsible. Some say it is the Western influence and all that. From your own point of view, what do you think is responsible for armed banditry in the Sahel region?
Now, I will tell you this. One is that the Sahel region have the concept of migration. People who are migrants. They don't have homes. They
among
crisscross.
Countries now.
Yes, there are people like that whose business is not to sit down in one place. They move around the place. Such persons have tendencies of what you're talking about now. The second is that we have also discovered that the level of hunger has also created the room for army of men who are being recruited on a daily basis into this kind of business. And we also realize that because of the fact that there's money coming from this kidnapping and all of that, a lot of people are not going to that business. What my take is that it's a social issue that has to be addressed socially. by all the government involved. The African government must sit back together and see how do we address these issues. First and foremost, employment is a crisis. Unemployment is heavy in this area. Second is that there is this mutual suspicion. Third, this area is also bedeviled by the West and the Eastern Bloc.
Their interest now.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So all of these put together form the challenges that I see that giving us some level of instability. We are not able to coordinate ourselves to drive a process. I've said some time ago here that Africa needs to come together to drive as a continent. A time has come when we must tell ourselves the truth. We cannot be waiting for other countries to come and give us what they call grants or give us aid. These things makes you subordinate your both psychologically and physically. And there's no way a man who gives you grants and aid will come and you will not listen to him occasionally because you don't want to. So let us sit back as Africans to wake up and change the narrative. We can take our continent and make it a great place to live in.
So changing the continent now, for Africa coming together to stand as one continent,
yes.
Do you see the military making incursions into government now as the way to go about that?
I do not think so, because at the military level, sometimes it is not about the people, it's about the military decision. No matter how beautiful it will be.
But recently, we saw the people applauding the military.
No, my dear, that is what normally happens at the immediate. We have seen coups over and over again. Even in Nigeria here, once they come and take over, there's the razzmatazz. It's like a film show, people are clapping and celebrating. Yes, yes. As soon as the man sits down in the office, after some time, people start asking questions, where are we going to? You know what I'm saying now? So I do not like a film show. I like a reality business. I believe that in realistic nature, the civilians should be able to govern their country and make it well. The military were not trained to be governors. They were trained to govern military territories and military organizations. And that is what their psyches also be. You see, my dear, everybody's prepared for a particular assignment. I prepare you to go and fight war. There's no way you can begin to be leading people. It's not possible to lead civil people. It's not possible. Because you have been trained and psychically defined to fight war. From your beginning to the end is war. And when the person is not talking the way you think that this person is, let me remove him. Whereas in democracy, there's a room for everybody to play in the space.
Yeah, but the kind of democracy we be having in Africa seems to be failing.
Now, I'll tell you, every government have what we call a dynamic system. It's dynamic. It's not a constant. That's why Africa must wake up and take over their continent. You see, if we respond to the dynamics of time, a democracy will come out. Because democracy is still working within the defines of the Western democracy without having cultural inputs from our own system. We have to internalize our democratic principles, for God's sake. We have to domesticate them and make them get the African content.
Yeah, when you say Western influence now, how exactly do you mean?
Now, the point is this, just for once, ask you a question.
Yeah, because the reason I'm asking that democracy in all sense is the ideology seems to be global. When you say democracy, democracy is democracy everywhere.
No, I will give you this, my dear.
Yeah.
Whether you like it or not, there's what we call the variant of the variable. Democratic practice. Because when you take, it's like I'm taking Unohoge's concept, Who's Carolina. And it comes to my house, that concept. And I have to realign it to suit my own people. Otherwise, there will be a problem, because there will be a gap. There's no way the Western culture can be the African culture. Don't forget that democracy is not just something from the blues. It has some element of cultural input. People's sensibility, people's idiosyncrasies, their thought pattern, their perception about life, their worldview. These are all part of what makes up democratic principles. So it's not just democracy and just standing, no. Because it realizes that it's working within the confines of the human society. And every human organization has its own psychology. So when you are behaving and want to talk like the white man, behave like the white man, dress like the white man, think like the white man, without the African content, you are going to run into boo-boo traps. And what are the traps? Okay, in Africa, for instance, we have this what we call Mohika reign, very strongly in Africa, as it were. And these are things that are realistic. You can't throw them away. Can't throw them away now? We cannot. Some of these other countries are simply Republican, everybody living on his own.
The monarchical system of government and perhaps the democratic system of government, they are two parallel lines.
That's what I'm telling you now. I'm telling you that what we need to do is to
fuse.
Is to see how we can blend and see. Let me tell you why democracy working in some countries and not working in other countries. Are you not asking questions? Because there's a conflict of interest. The Aborigine style of government and democracy, there's a conflict of interest. So you need to find a way of synchronizing them. And then they come out with a new element that will drive the process of our democracy. So that people will internalize it and make it their own, not Western owned, our own. Because now people see it as Western owned. And that is why sometimes things that happen within our system, we begin to have conflict of interest. It's supposed to be something that's supposed to bring our interests together, not conflict. You get the picture now? So, as we talk today, look at some other clime where democracy is operating. They still have their issues occasionally. It's not like it's a spiritual concept. No. It's human. But how you're able to manage them, to work with your people's sensibility and their idiosyncrasies and make it work, that's where it works. Okay. And then you're able to think out of the box. After your first level of practice, what are we not doing rightly in this practice? And we need to take the next level. So I am saying that Africa continent, the Africans people, should think of governance. A scholar once wrote a work, Professor B.I.C. Ijoma, I think it was sociology or something, University of AAU at that time. Now, then it was Ambrali University. And I think it was the dean of faculty also, B.I.C. Ijoma. He wrote a work, Afrocracy. He wrote a work, Afrocracy.
So what that Afrocracy...
So the concept was to Africanize democratic content so that you can build in the African cultural content and bring the democratic element to be, and then create a dimension that will be an African-driven democracy. But today, for instance, let me tell you today, now look at what happened now. How do you explain? Have you ever heard that Americans come here to come and discuss their political future?
No way.
So what do you think is the reason?
Because they feel they have it all.
That's what I'm saying. These guys, they're talking about the Americans, for instance, they cannot come here. And that is self-confidence. Okay? Yeah. And taking their independence very seriously. So Africans can do so. I don't see why Africans should want to have the election, they must go to America or go to UK or go to Chatham House or whatever. I don't see it. To me, I don't see that as something reasonable. I see it as being subjugated. We're still working in the servitude of yesteryears. Let's leave it. See, China cannot come to Nigeria to come and discuss their leadership problem in Nigeria. They cannot come. They can't even go to US. They do it in their own land. Is it not true? So the Chinese people are the superstar in the world, whether anybody like it or not, in terms of development. Just now I was reading something on the net. Come and see the flyovers they have done in their hand. Hanging roads. Fantastic thing. It's an architecture that you cannot beat. That's China. Many years ago, Chinese was seen as a disdain society. Today, they are superstars. So say we cannot do it. Go to Indonesia. They are also pulling out their weight. Okay. Go to India. Yeah. They are also pulling out of all of these shackles. Let us pull out the shackles. Let us have our continent back. Now, Africans must drive their continent and get a continent of their own. Okay.
All right. So would you want to say that perhaps it appears that Africans fight themselves? I mean, with this new security pact now that these three countries are putting together, we understand that Ecowas is not comfortable with it. So, I mean, the issue of insecurity in the Sahara region has been a big problem to most African nations. So why would Ecowas not want to support it? Why are they threatened?
Now, I'll tell you this, my dear. Whether you like it or not, no matter how smart you are, you cannot have your neighbor that is not psychologically stable, unquote, and then you go to bed and sleep. Because you don't know what he's thinking in his mind. Because right now, these are military boys. You don't know what they're thinking in their mind. The concept, just like I told you, I said, if the coming together is to create security and solve the security problem now, fine, beautiful, fantastic, because collaboration is good in security. But if it's otherwise, then something is wrong.
So that's what you think ECOWAS thinks too?
Yes, that's what I'm thinking they're thinking. But I'm expecting that it should be for mutual protection, for giving results-oriented security devices, and building integrated architecture that cover the gaps that will exist if they are not working together, and all of that, and all of that. But again, with the current trend of events, ECOWAS cannot be comfortable when ECOWAS have more of democratically driven society than the military government.
And more of their nations are,
you know what I'm saying? So you cannot expect the man to be smiling. It's like you're talking about the story of the, Ukraine and Russia. And Russia should go to bed and sleep and be smiling. I want to partner with Ukraine. When they are aware that there's a decision, there's a plan or a speculation that Ukraine want to go into NATO. You get the picture now? And the Russian man said, I can't let my people to go in my fence. And I say, I want to go to bed and sleep. So the kind of thing that's happening here is that we have a contiguous arrangement in Africa, in fact, in the West Africa region, the Niger, the Mali, and all of that. If you look at how close we are. So when you hear those people are going to sit down together and want to plan, and they are now military juntans, then something must be asking you a question. What is the plan for? Is it for good or for bad? What is the plan? And you must be worried. You must think through. You must do analysis. Otherwise, you are a foolish leader.
All right, so the program is still Africa Discourse on Independent Television. Now, before we quickly go on a short break now, you see, this coming together, this marriage of these three nations now, trying to checkmate insecurity in the country. Some people say is not going to succeed without the influence of the West, the East now, talking about Russia, the Wagner Force and all that. Now, we also know that these people perhaps have been our greatest enemy, as it were, because they don't do all these things. They're not going to support us for free in any way. I mean, concessions are going to be made. I mean, how do we go in all of all this?
There's nowhere anything is free. Either you pay in cash or you pay in kind. That's the truth. Nobody gives you anything free. If there are anybody that is 0.1%.
Even at our own detriment, natural resources.
Are you aware that sometimes people mortgage natural resources to give them peanuts from the West and from the East? Yes. And natural resources. Look at how much we are told that France buys this thing from Niger. And look at what the current market price is. Does that seem to make any sense to you? You know what I'm saying now?
Yeah.
Yes, because they believe that they were giving them everything they require to protect them. So whatever they have is their own. It's part of the bargain. So for me, and that is why you find out that when you have this commodity trade, sometimes it's to the disadvantage of the one who is not strong enough economically. Okay? But let's leave that for another discussion for the future.
Yeah.
But the truth is that there's no way I would expect that the African countries, say Nigeria, can go to bed and sleep and say this is well. There's no way that, because we must understand what was the rationale for that relationship. The East, yes, want to enter the African continent, and they've been here, but they want to expand their coast. The way the West also want to go into that area, the Eastern Territory. So it's like Africa is the punching bag, and everybody wants to split Africa into pieces and put us into shreds. So that if that is happening, if you have the next door neighbor from the French, the Russian guide, the next door neighbor is American guide, there's something is already wrong. They cannot live together. Because the more you want to live together with the man from the West, then the man supporting you will say, sorry, I can't continue my support with you because I suspect you now. So where do you go from there? And that's why I say Africa must move. Let's Africa move out of this. For over 100 years, we've been in this kind of shackles.
Yeah.
Is it not time for us to pull out? Let them do what they are doing. Who say we cannot develop on our own? Who says so? Who says so? If China can develop on their own, if Japan can go on their own, so who say we cannot develop on our own? Who says that we must remain in the shackles of these people? Who? No, there's nowhere. And by the way, if you look at it carefully, you have so many blacks are making a difference in America. So many blacks. Some of the technology drive and all that, black men are driving those processes.
So what is essentially the issue?
That is why I'm saying that Africa must sit back and rethink.
Yeah.
You get the picture now. We must sit back and rethink and reassemble ourselves. What exactly what's our challenge? What do we want? You see, my dear, there's no country that develops without having its pitfalls. You stagger, you stumble, and you stand. No child that was born today started walking today. Every child that was born struggled, crept, staggered, stumbled, stand, and start walking.
Yeah, but Africa
so my dear, we're talking about age. Yeah. The issue of age is in number and not in the intellectual content.
It's all encompassing.
No, my dear. See, if I come to realize Any time I come to realize that I need to drive a process for myself, that day is my good morning. People say any day you wake up is your good morning. The African continent must wake up now. Time has come. We have had enough. We are already having bashed. Imagine that now we are now the centerpiece of struggle. They want to divide us into pieces.
Yeah.
The West is taking its own. The East is taking its own. Everybody is deciding to share Africa in bits.
Yeah.
And nobody cares about the African they are taking from. All the resources in Africa is being tapped by them. They do commodity trade on a regular basis.
Yeah.
We send them crude. The same people will decide how much crude is sold, will be bought. The same people will decide for us how much they will sell.
All right,
So Africa must wake up.
Yeah.
So for me, it's not my lamentation time. It's time to think. We've been lamenting. Let us think.
Okay. All right. So the program is still Africa Discourse on Independent Television here. We've got Mr. Bashir Kadiri here, former Permanent Secretary, Minister of Agric in Edo State, and now a political analyst as well as a public affairs analyst. We are looking at the recent tie between three nations, Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso, coming together to sign a security pact to wrestle the issue of insecurity and banditry in the Sahara region. So the big question is, what are the benefits? Because these three nations we're talking about now, recently they were taken over by military junta. So the big question is, how come the military now trying to define, the pathway for security in Africa? So we're going to be picking up from there when we return on the other side of this program. Please don't go away. Stay tuned. All right, thank you so much. The program is still here, Africa Discourse on Independent Television. We have to take that pause so that we get you latest updates as you get along on the program. My name is Evan Zunobuge one more time. And of course, we'll have Bashir Kadiri here looking at the recent three nations coming together to sign some form of security pact to wrestle insecurity and armed banditry now in the Sahara region. Now, let's look at the civilian government that we've been trying to talk about now, democratically elected governments and all that. One would have thought that before these military guys, had to come together, that the popular and the acceptable government that we are used to would have done this coming together to wrestle banditry. Mr. Kadiri.
Now, let me first say that I'm not against collaboration. I said it earlier today.
Yeah.
The best way to get security solved is collaboration among nations. To cover your gaps that are existing from your own side, and I call my gap, and they call your gap, and then insurgency will be almost a thing of the past. The only fear I also have for that is that if they succeed in doing that, they will push those criminals into other countries, where you don't have that kind of collaboration.
Yeah.
But however, let me hope that their relationship which they are building now is for the mutual benefit of their countries and not for individual personal aggrandizement, not to teach other countries that you are not part of us, that we're going to deal with you. I hope it's not going to work against us, but I hope it's going to work in our favor. But I must tell you this, Evans, the truth is that whether we like it or not, the story we are currently carrying is a function of the fact that how do you expect that a family will remain in power for near 46 years?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
now?
they are libogos.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, and those kind of stories are enough to generate a lot of problem. I do sympathize that I don't see how one family will just be in power for 46 years. Evans, 46 years.
Yeah.
Father finished, son take over.
Yeah.
And the thing continues like that.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. You see, that is where I'm talking about. That's the monarchical element, which is part of our background.
Yeah, but a while ago...
What I was saying... Wait a minute. What I was saying, I know where you're going to. What I was saying was that for every system, there's something good to take from it.
Yeah.
You get the picture now?
Yeah.
Take this, and form a system that is working.
So in the African system, what are those good things?
Now, beautiful.
Yeah.
For instance, respect for constitutional authority is part of African tradition. There's no African man today that goes to the palace of Nigeria, for instance, that will stand and not greet.
Is it not in the same Africa, Mr. Kadri, that we have big individuals?
Hold on.
We have individuals that must be respected,
see, my dear,
but we do not have institutions that should be respected.
No, I'm going somewhere.
Yeah.
See, that is, I said, take some from this, and you have a sound one. Secondly, my brother, don't forget that the issue of culture, morals, were part of our culture. Because of the mixed match we have today of culture, that's why we now lost what morals are. We now have what we call deficit of morals, where children now will go naked in the streets in the name of dress code because of the Western incursion.
Influence.
We now have a mixed match of a culture that is not making sense to anybody. It's neither black nor white man culture. That's the issue. But I am saying, why I'm not saying that, but what I'm trying to say here is that for every system, there's something you must take from it that works for you, that makes your system sane. Because of one scholar wrote a word, they call him S.B. Mbiti. He said Africans are religiously, he said notoriously religious. What was he saying by way of notorious? Not because there's no negative description. That Africans are in depth in religion. Okay, so everything about them is religiosity. Look at our background, our homes, our communities. We have the ATR running for them. Everybody is doing that. And people say, oh, this is what? Western religion, Islamic religion, all of those are here. Because I'm a student of philosophy, so I can tell you
but religiosity, not that we're saying that religiosity is not good, but to what
beautiful,
extent...
now you are saying so. So that's what I'm saying here. That if you agree religiosity is good, which means that you bring that concept
of religiosity
into your democratic principles.
Yeah.
So that there can be some sanity, some respect. You see, what makes a home strong is that the children see their father as, is it a deity now? That when he comes, everybody sits down and
they see him as a figure. Yeah.
As a figure.
Yeah.
I use there's one figure. No, as a respectful figure.
As a figure,
or a symbol of respect.
Yeah.
And so they sit down. No matter what they were doing, they sit down quietly. Is it not true? That's what I'm saying. But today you get to the Western world. Some home children see their father coming, they see him, hi. Can you tell your father hi when you were growing up? And you want to sleep with that night? Who are you? Hey, daddy, hi. Oh my, God help you. That night you know that your father is not high.
Yeah, but you can.
So those values. You see, don't forget where I'm going to that. There are values in African cultural background.
Yeah, but I want you to speak on something that I don't want us to leave alone on.
Please
this,
go ahead.
Talk this afternoon.
Yes.
Now, in Africa, it is in Africa that we have individuals. It's part of our cultural belief that this person must be respected. And of course, that seems to have given us a way why we do have individuals at the expense of institutions. I mean, for the Western world that we are trying to even castigate here, it is their institutions that they believe so much, that they hold sacrosanct, that takes them to where they are now. But here in Africa, we respect individuals at the expense of institutions. Individuals will not make us great. It is our institutions that we have so eroded, that we have so allowed to go down. That's the reason why we are where we are today. Don't you think so?
Well, can I tell you, my dear, we're talking about individuals. Those are institutions.
Individuals, institutions?
They were central institutions. The traditional circle is an institution. Is it not true?
Well, it is true.
But they're beautiful. Who are these individuals? Where are they coming from? They are either chiefs or they are whatever. They are from that institution. So let's not run away from this fact. You see, what we're just trying to establish is that Africa has the capacity to be a continent that can drive its own future and make a super difference. That's the point I'm making. And I'm not going to share from it at all. We are not designed to be fiddle role players. We were born like other white men were born as kings. And we must think as kings and drive our continent as kings. We must not drive our continent as if we were slaves. What has happened to us is that it has affected our psyche. Everybody is now, but I don't want to use what everybody is simply universal description. Some persons, many people are believing that except it is a white man is not right. And that is where the danger is. And the white man sees that as, okay, yes, I'm superior. Have you read the work of, what is his name now? I'll keep quoting people, Onaivi Suleiman.
No.
Go and look at what he works.
Yeah.
He's one of the classical religious leaders in the world. Was a black man. I don't want to mention his name. And he described his genealogical definition, where he was born and all of those trends. That's the African continent.
All right, now.
So for me, for us to believe that the white man have a super hair that drives it, let me tell you, the white man also had his own history. Where there were cases where they were beast-like. They evolved. America became an independent country in 1776. Is it not true?
Yeah, that's correct.
So the point is that it's not like we are just talking from the blues. There are historical references.
Okay.
Even in China and Japan, they were living like people living in the animal kingdom, where people were slaughtered in the gallery. But today, go there and see the difference.
Anyway, let's look at the crop of these military guys that we must also talk about, even as we talk about this topic now. You have Burkina Faso, you have Mali,
Yes.
you have Niger. Now,
Yes.
Burkina Faso, the military guy there, Traore, who is just about 27, 28 or thereabout, very young guy. You know, now for most people, they believe that the kind of military guys that we have now, they have total different orientation. Perhaps you may want to say an orientation that is somehow democratic. You know, they are more civil compared to military guys we had in the 80s, in the 70s, and perhaps in the 60s, you know, that came into power and all that. So for most people, for most Africans, they would rather prefer them to come into government, you know.
Well, why you are saying that is because of the experiences you have had over time. Don't forget that experiences we have over time are supposed to be our learning curves. Because for me, when a man had pitfalls, it should be part of his learning curve.
Yeah.
Deploy what your errors are to make your corrections so that a better future. Today is a challenge, tomorrow will be a better future. That's my concept.
In Africa?
That is my concept.
Okay.
Now, and it's working for every man, even individuals.
Do you think there is hope for Africa? Mr.
Now, I'm not a hopeless person because I'm an optimist.
Yeah.
I'm a repentant optimist. In all my life, I grew up like that. I'm also optimistic that nothing is impossible if your mind is there. And we are told in psychology that nothing you cannot achieve once your mind is there. You can bring this wall down and cross over it if your mind is there. It's just about whether you are convinced of what you are doing. Nothing is impossible once it is thinkable. If it's not thinkable, yes, it's impossible. But once it's thinkable, it is possible. You are asking me that Africa is, that means it's thinkable. That means it's possible. An African continent can come and stand. A Nigeria can come and stand. Other countries can come and stand. Let me tell you the story here. My dear, leadership is, governance is not about wake up from one epileptic talk and run into government and run out. No, it's not. It's a more serious business. It's more serious business. Leadership is not the way people talk about it. It's a more serious business.
Okay. Okay. So back to the
the people we're talking about.
Yeah.
The three military guys.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know their training, but what I know is that they are military men. And for a military man, there's no way he can be thinking democratically.
Or civility.
No, I use the word democratically
Okay.
to give a global picture. A military man is a military man. Any day, any time. His training is clear. It was not designed to come and manage a civil rule. It was designed to drive a military concept. So whether you say the young men are modern or not modern, but they were trained in military discussions.
Yeah, but they have promised that they are taking these nations
everybody
to
have promised in the
military
past.
rule.
In Nigeria here, we were growing up, we had military rule. I'm sure you met some few military rules.
Of course I did.
Each of them that comes gave us some fantastic hope. Is it not true? And what did we get at the end of the tunnel? Were we getting it sweet as we expected? If we are getting it sweet, we would have been where we are now today. Many people are blaming military for what is happening now. For me, that's a blame game. Because you have been there for 20 something years. What have you done and make a difference? But that is not to say that we cannot refer to it.
So these countries now, like Niger has said that in 3 years' time that they are going to return, Niger back to civil rule. So
Yes.
are we saying that there's no hope?
Which means that the military men also knew that they are not cut out for rulership of a democratic arrangement. They also know. They also say, let us do a fine-tuning so that we can come back to start again.
So what kind of
What
what kind of democratic arrangement do you think that will be?
That's the question. That's the question now. You are asking me. And you said the man said in 3 years they will hand over back to civilians. It's not true.
Yeah, that's what he said.
So what they are simply saying is that they want to rejig the process so they can have a new democratic rule that will drive the process, departing from what it used to be. But I don't know what their package is. I don't know who they also want to influence to come on board. Because don't forget that as we are going to leadership, you see, one thing about leadership is like, it's like a covo. It's like a covo. All the know what happens inside. You go in with an idea you are coming about. If you're not careful, at the middle of that you're driving, you'll be somersault.
Yeah.
And something else will be driving your head. And then you wake up one morning and think that, let me tell you one thing. I wrote a work in 1982 as a young man. I wrote the work and I said, leadership, yesterday, today, and the future. And my sergeant was that it's like a covo. All the know what happens inside. I said, leadership is something that it's like you are in trance. You go in there, certain things you do, if you're not careful and very courageous, you'll be asking, was it me that did that thing that time? Me? How? I'm not sure I did that kind of thing. But you did it. Because like you're in trance. You'll be wondering whether you were the one. But you were the one. So you need to be, 3 things you must have as a leader to stand your ground and drive the process. So, 1, courage.
Yeah.
Okay? 1, you must be intellectually contented. I'm very clear in your definition of where we are going to from the very beginning. And of course, the last one, you must have the love of a dove.
So back to our question now, so that we don't shy away from the question now. Back to our question, these countries now, incidentally enough now, among all the countries that military, has taken over, these 3 countries seems to be the center stage now. So can they return these countries back to accepted military, civilian rule?
For me, I will not say no, because I'm not a soothsayer. I don't dominate. But what I know is that many a time, people tell you what they want to do at the beginning, which of course was genuine. Maybe at the middle of that journey, something else changes their mind. But let's hope that they told us what they would do, and they will do what they have told us. Let's also hope that they have the courage to consistently remain in the track they have defined to the people that they want to do. Because if you don't have courage, you will just run away. And then the last I want to mention is that let us also hope that they know what they are doing and they also plan what they want to do. Because these are fundamental issues. Knowing what you are doing, you plan what you are doing, knowing what you are doing, and know where you are going to. Anyway, and then have courage to drive those processes.
Don't you think these guys know what they are doing? A situation whereby the kind of government that they run now is almost military versus civilian. Having civilian personnel as ministers and all that. So don't you think that they are preparing these nations to eventually launch them into an acceptable civil rule?
But is that new to us in Nigeria? We had a president and civilian governors. Are you not aware?
Yeah.
So
even ministers then?
Even ministers then.
Yeah.
So what are we saying? It's not new to us. We've passed that road. The governors were governors, civilian governors, and the military president. We call it diarchy. Oh, they call it in
I remember diarchy, yeah.
It happens. So is that new to you? What did we say about that? What was our own personal experience? So you learn from your experience to see possibility and do a projection. Because what we're always doing now, we'll do a projection. Not that we are saying casting iron, that's what they will do. But we're always saying we are anticipating and hope that they will not fall the way the others fall.
So are you saying that military fell in Nigeria? The civil rule you and I are enjoying today, they eventually gave it to us.
Now, I'll tell you this. even you will confess that, I'm sure in the media has been talked about. Some people say that today the gaps and trouble we have in Nigeria are still
but they are being celebrated.
No. Are you? No, I'm asking you.
But they are being celebrated. They returned Nigeria back to civil rule.
I'm in TV program.
Yeah.
And I'm not here to do razzmatazz. I don't like the film show. I like to be very realistic with myself. If people like to talk about theater, they like that. But what you said yesterday, I'll remind you. A lot of these people told us that military they set the stage that's giving up problem today. And it was what they did that we are still suffering some of the fates. Okay? And that even the military that hand over to civilian, because they hand over to civilian, they did say they only want to probe him because there was a lot of corruption and stealing and all of that at that time.
Yeah.
Is it not true?
Yeah.
So had that one changed suddenly? Of course, no. That yes, civilian, Salam decided to hand over power to the people and said, yes, gentlemen, take over and rule the country. Me, I'm done. It was under pressure not to go. You know that.
Yeah.
It was under pressure not to go.
Yeah.
They insist that he must not go, but he said he was leaving. You know, so for me, my dear, everything has its time. Everything has its time in nature. There's time to born, time to die. There's time to celebrate, time to marry, time to have children, and all that and all that. There are time. So for me, those countries are passing through their time. My only prayer is that these young men coming now, they will not run into deception. They may have meant well. I use the word may. Why people are not clapping for them is because we are complaining about democracy, not doing this one, people are taking this one, now that's why people are clapping. And that is very temporary celebration. Very soon they'll be asking questions about them. Very soon. Very soon. And that is the problem I have with people. You know, when you say something, be consistent. Even the followers who celebrate them, in the next short while they'll be complaining about them.
Anyway,
that's the problem. So that is the nature of human being. So for me, let us not preempt them yet. Let us believe that, let's hope and believe that in 3 years' time, the man said we're going to hand over to civilian government. We actually do so.
He does that.
Yes, we actually do so. And that the man too also plan such a way that it's not just handing over to civilian government, but he has a plan material that will lead it. Because well, military men had their own fault, but some of the benefits we can talk about today was the democratic ethos that people were enjoying today, where Babangida's concept. He agreed and set up lead to the right, lead to the left. And of course set up the democratic institution that says, okay, there is what we call it, they call it Center of Democratic Studies, CDS, led by Mori. Okay, that drew up what we call the manifestos of the two parties that they finally established, the NRC and the SDP.
And of which other parties started having manifestos.
You know what I'm saying? So I give that to them. But like I said, no matter how you look at the government, there must something you must benefit from it. And that's why I'm saying that Africa must pick from the good, pick good here, and put together and make it a material to drive African continent.
Okay. All right, so because of time factor, I've been told to wrap it up for today on the program Africa Discourse. I want to say a very big thank you to Bashir Kadiri, always very explosive when he comes on our program. From his wealth of knowledge, you certainly gain from it. He doesn't talk like a retired civil servant. He talks like a politician. Thank you so much, sir, for finding time to come on the show today. Thank you very much.
God bless you, my
All right, so that was the program today, Africa Discourse with Evan Sunokugie on independent television. So until same time next week, the program comes your way. Bye-bye, and God bless you.